My name is Vicky, 58 years old, and I've proudly raised my daughter Sophia as a single mum. We've always been incredibly close, sharing every milestone together. Recently, though, something changed. Fewer calls, cancelled visits. Then came that devastating moment when I called about wedding preparations, and Mason, my son-in-law, coldly informed me, "We got married yesterday, only special people, no one to embarrass the family." If you've ever felt excluded by family, let me know where you're watching from and subscribe to my channel. I never imagined raising a child alone. That wasn't the plan when I married David Sophia's father. We were young in love and full of dreams about our future family. Then reality hit hard when Sophia was just 4 years old. David announced he'd found someone else and walked out, leaving us with more bills than savings, and a daughter who cried for her daddy every night. Those early years were a constant struggle. I worked 2 jobs most of the time, receptionist at a dental office during the day and waitressing at night. There were nights I skipped dinner so Sophia could have enough to eat, and I became an expert at stretching every dollar until it screamed. Birthday presents came from thrift stores, carefully cleaned and wrapped in newspaper I'd decorated myself. We lived in a tiny 1-bedroom apartment where I gave Sophia the bedroom while I slept on a pull-out couch in the living room. Despite the hardships, we created our own special world together. Sunday mornings were sacred. That's when I'd make our special pancakes, sometimes shaped like animals or with chocolate chips forming a smile. During holidays, we created our own traditions. For Christmas, we'd make ornaments from salt dough each year, adding to our collection. On Thanksgiving, we'd write what we were grateful for on paper leaves and create a gratitude tree that stayed up until New Year's. "Mom, we don't need anyone else." "We're a perfect team," Sophia would say, especially after seeing her friends with their intact families. Her words always warmed my heart, even as they made me worry whether I was enough for her. School became Sophia's domain to shine. She was naturally bright and driven, bringing home report cards that made me burst with pride. I still remember her 5th grade science fair project about water conservation that won first place. The blue ribbon hung on our refrigerator until it faded completely. I worked extra shifts to pay for the science camps she wanted to attend in summer, watching her curiosity about the world grow alongside her confidence. When college acceptance letters started arriving, I couldn't hold back tears. All those years of sacrifice were worth it to see her succeed. I'd been putting aside whatever I could in a college fund since she was a baby, but it wasn't nearly enough. Between student loans, scholarships, and me picking up weekend inventory work at the local department store, we made it happen. During those college years, our phone calls were the highlight of my week. She'd tell me about her classes, her friends, and her dreams of becoming a clinical psychologist. I sent care packages with homemade cookies and little notes of encouragement hidden throughout. When things got tough for her during finals, I'd drive the 3 hours to her campus just to bring her favorite home-cooked meal and give her a hug. It was during her graduate program that she met Mason. I still remember her excited call. "Mom, I've met someone amazing. He's so smart and driven, and he makes me laugh." Mason was studying business administration with plans to join his family's investment firm. From her descriptions, he sounded perfect. Charming, well-educated, ambitious, and supposedly crazy about my daughter. When I first met Mason at Sophia's graduation dinner, he was polite and attentive. He pulled out my chair, asked thoughtful questions about my life, and seemed genuinely interested in getting to know me. I noticed how Sophia's face lit up whenever he spoke, how she leaned toward him like a flower seeking sunlight. They looked good together. Both bright, attractive young people with promising futures. Last spring, Sophia called me, her voice bubbling with excitement. "Mom, Mason proposed. We're getting married." I cried happy tears as she described how he'd taken her to the botanical gardens, her favorite place, and gotten down on one knee beside the lily pond. The ring was beautiful, a large diamond that must have cost more than I made in several months. What followed were wonderful weeks of wedding planning discussions. Sophia and I would talk for hours about venues, flowers, and dresses. She wanted a full wedding with burgundy and gold accents, and she asked me if I would help her find her perfect dress. "I can't imagine doing this without you, Mom," she said. "We even made a Pinterest board together to share ideas." "I want you to feel special that day too," Sophia told me during one of our planning sessions. "After all, you're the one who got me here." She promised we'd go shopping together for my mother of the bride outfit, something elegant but comfortable. I started setting aside a portion of each paycheck, wanting to contribute to my only daughter's special day, despite her protests that she and Mason had it covered. Those were happy times. I never imagined what was coming. The changes were subtle at first. Sophia started taking longer to return my calls. Our weekly Sunday check-ins became bi-weekly, then whenever we can find time. When I asked about wedding preparations, her answers grew vague. "Oh, we're still figuring things out," or "Mason's mom has some connections we're exploring." In June, I drove to the city to have dinner with Sophia Mason and his parents. I'd spent days preparing, bought a new blouse I could barely afford, practiced conversation topics, even researched the prestigious university where Mason's father was a dean. I wanted so badly to make a good impression. The restaurant they chose was intimidating from the moment I walked in. Crystal chandeliers, waiters in formal attire, and a wine list thicker than a novel. Mason's parents, the Whittingtons, were impeccably dressed and carried themselves with the easy confidence of people who've never worried about money. Dr. Whittington barely looked up from his menu when introduced, while Mrs. Whittington gave me a quick once-over and a tight smile. "So Victoria Sophia tells us you work at a dental office?" Mrs. Whittington asked, pronouncing my name with a slight emphasis that made it sound foreign. "Yes, I'm the officer manager now, been there 20 years, I answered proudly. How quaint to stay in one place so long. I always tell our foundation scholarship recipients that mobility is essential in today's economy," she replied, sharing a knowing look with her husband. Throughout dinner, they asked about my education, community college, my neighborhood, definitely not where they lived, and my hobbies, too busy working to have many. Each answer seemed to confirm something they'd already decided about me. Mason occasionally jumped in to change the subject, but I noticed he never contradicted his parents or defended my lifestyle. As we were waiting for dessert, I excused myself to the restroom. Walking back, I paused when I heard Mason's voice around the corner. "I know she's a bit rough around the edges. Not exactly what you'd expect, given how Sophia turned out," he was saying quietly. "Don't worry, we can limit her involvement in the wedding. The last thing we need is her talking to your colleagues about couponing strategies or whatever." I heard Sophia's response, which cut deeper than Mason's words. "She means well, but she can be a little much. She's just so excited about everything. Maybe we should handle the major decisions without her." That night I cried myself to sleep, but I told myself I was overreacting. Sophia was just trying to impress her future in-laws. It didn't mean anything. In the following weeks, I tried reaching out about wedding plans. "Have you set a date yet? Should I start looking at venues in our area?" "Actually, we're thinking of something closer to Mason's parents," Sophia responded. "They know all the best places." "What about the dress shopping we talked about?" "Oh, I'm so busy with work right now. Let's plan that for later." When I suggested a small engagement party with some family friends who'd known Sophia since childhood, she became evasive. "Mason and I are so busy with work. Maybe after things settle down." I began noticing Sophia's social media, showing a life I wasn't part of. There she was at a wine tasting with Mason's parents, a weekend trip to a beach house with his family, Sunday brunch with his sister. All the while my invitations were met with, "We're just so busy right now, Mom." The final blow came when I saw a photo posted by a bridal boutique showing Sophia trying on wedding dresses with Mrs. Whittington, both of them smiling widely with champagne glasses in hand. The caption read, "Nothing more special than finding the perfect dress with Mom." The knife twisted deeper when I saw Sophia had commented, "Couldn't have done it without you." I called her immediately, trying to keep my voice steady. "I saw you went dress shopping." A pause. "Oh, that. It wasn't planned. We were having lunch nearby and just stopped in for fun. I haven't decided on anything yet." "You told me we would do that together. You promised." "Mom, don't make this a big deal. We'll still have plenty to do together." Her voice had an edge I rarely heard. "Look, I need to go. Mason and I are meeting his parents' friends for dinner. I'll call you later this week." "Okay, we'll schedule something then." That call never came, but she did text me a few days later. "Don't worry about the wedding planning. We've got it under control. I promise you'll be involved when the time comes." I held on to that promise like a lifeline. As summer turned to fall, the promised updates about wedding plans never materialized. My calls went straight to voicemail. My texts received brief, non-specific responses. "Everything's fine, just busy." "Working on it. We'll update soon." By October, when the wedding should have been approaching, based on their original timeline, I was frantic with worry and hurt. Had I been disinvited without even being told I tried calling Sophia 3 days in a row with no response? Finally, in desperation, I called Mason's number. To my surprise, he answered on the second ring. "Hello, Victoria." His voice was cool formal. "Mason, hi. I've been trying to reach Sophia about the wedding plans. Is everything okay? I haven't heard any updates in months." There was a pause, then a small dismissive laugh. "Oh, that. We got married yesterday. Only special people. No one to embarrass the family." The world stopped. My mind couldn't process the words at first. "What, you... yesterday?" "But I'm her mother." My voice sounded distant to my own ears. "Look, it was a small thing. Just my family and our close friends. Sophia agreed it was better this way. Less drama." "Let me speak to my daughter, please." I was begging now, tears streaming down my face. "She's out with my mother right now. Wedding brunch. I'll tell her you called." The call ended. I sat on my kitchen floor phone, still clutched in my hand for what felt like hours. The pain was physical, like someone had reached into my chest and squeezed my heart until it burst. How could this happen? How could my only child, the person I'd given everything for, exclude me from one of the most important days of her life? With shaking hands, I opened social media and immediately wished I hadn't. There they were, beautiful professional wedding photos already posted. Sophia in an elegant white gown I'd never seen standing beside Mason, in front of an ornate altar decorated with cascading white orchids. The Whittingtons beaming proudly. A reception in what looked like a ballroom with crystal chandeliers and ice sculptures. And around Sophia's neck was my mother's pearl necklace, the one family heirloom I had saved to give her on her wedding day. She must have taken it from my jewelry box during her last visit to my home. I scrolled through image after image, each one a fresh wound. Sophia dancing with Dr. Whittington, cutting a towering cake with Mason, laughing with guests I didn't recognize. It was an elaborate affair, not the small thing Mason had described. And I had been deliberately excluded. In a moment of desperate anger, I called the Whittingtons' home number, which Sophia had given me months earlier, in case of emergency. Mrs. Whittington answered, her voice instantly cooling when I identified myself. "Why wasn't I told about the wedding? Why wasn't I invited? She's my daughter." I couldn't control the tremor in my voice. "Victoria." This was Sophia and Mason's decision. They wanted a certain atmosphere for their day. I'm sure you understand. No, I don't understand how a mother can be excluded from her only child's wedding. Well, her voice dropped to a near whisper. Perhaps if you'd shown more refinement during our interactions, things might have been different. The wedding had many important guests, university donors, business associates. It needed to present a certain image. Before I could respond, she added, I need to go now. We're still entertaining wedding guests. The line went dead. Later that evening, I received a text from a number I didn't recognize, but I knew had to be from Sophia's college roommate, Taylor. Vicky, I heard what happened. I was at the wedding and felt awful when I realized you weren't there. Sophia seemed off the whole day. Mason kept pulling her aside when she got emotional. I overheard him telling her it was better this way, because you would have embarrassed them and made it all about yourself. I don't believe that's true, but I think Sophia's been convinced of it. I'm worried about her. I barely slept that night, or the next, or the one after that. I kept replaying moments from Sophia's childhood, wondering where I had gone wrong. Had I not given her enough? Had I been too much, too clingy, not supportive enough? The questions circled endlessly, offering no peace. I called in sick to work for the first time in years. I couldn't bear to make small talk with patients who might innocently ask about my daughter's wedding. How could I explain that I hadn't been invited, that I learned about it after the fact, like some distant acquaintance? The betrayal cut deeper than anything I'd ever experienced, deeper even than when David left us. This was my child, my Sophia, the person I'd centered my entire life around. And she had rejected me in the most public, most painful way possible. The week following the wedding was the darkest of my life. I alternated between crying uncontrollably and sitting in numb silence. I sent Sophia text after text, ranging from hurt questions to desperate pleas to angry accusations. Most went unanswered. The few responses were brief and defensive. It was for the best, Mom. You would have been uncomfortable. It happened really quickly. We didn't have time to include everyone. Mason's parents paid for everything. They had a vision. I drove to their apartment on the third day, a 2-hour trip that I barely remembered making. When I arrived, Mason answered the door, blocking the entrance with his body. Sophia's resting. The wedding was exhausting. I need to see my daughter, I insisted, trying to look past him. That's not a good idea right now. You're clearly emotional, and Sophia doesn't need that kind of stress. Why don't you call when you're calmer? As we spoke, I saw Sophia appear briefly in the hallway behind him. Our eyes met, and I could swear I saw guilt flash across her face before she quickly disappeared back into another room. Sophia, please just talk to me, I called out. Mason's face hardened. I think you should leave before I need to call security for our building. That kind of scene would just prove we made the right decision about the wedding. As I turned to leave, defeated Mason added, and Victoria Sophia needs space right now. From you. She's part of our family now. On my way back to my car, I ran into their neighbor, an older woman walking her small dog. You must be Sophia's mum, she said kindly. I recognize you from the photos in their apartment, though there seem to be fewer of those lately. We chatted briefly, and what she shared chilled me. She'd often overheard arguments through the walls. Mason's voice would be sharp critical. Why can't you do anything right? Do you have to be so embarrassing? Your mother really did a number on you, didn't she? I worry about your daughter, the woman confided. She doesn't smile much when he's around, and she seems to have stopped having her friends over. It used to be a lively place. That conversation led me to reach out to some of Sophia's college friends. What I learned formed a disturbing pattern. Mason had gradually isolated Sophia from many of her old friends. He criticized her clothing choices, her career ambitions, her laugh, even the way she spoke to waitstaff. According to her former roommate, he'd once thrown away an entire shelf of books Sophia loved because they were juvenile trash unworthy of an educated woman. One friend told me, "We tried to warn her, but she always defended him. Said he was helping her become more polished, more professional, that he wanted what was best for her." As these revelations piled up, my sadness transformed into fear for my daughter. This wasn't just about a wedding anymore. It was about recognizing the signs of a controlling relationship that had successfully cut her off from her strongest support, me. I sank into a depression unlike anything I'd experienced before. I took a leave of absence from work, unable to focus on anything. The apartment that had once felt like a cozy home now seemed empty, haunted by Sophia's absence. I'd look at her childhood photos and wonder if I would ever have a relationship with my daughter again. The financial strain added to my stress. I'd spent a significant portion of my savings helping Sophia with graduate school and setting aside money for her wedding. At 58, my retirement fund was nowhere near where it should have been because I'd always prioritized Sophia's needs over my future security. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, I received a text from an unknown number. "Victoria, this is Mason. We're setting up our new apartment, and remember you promised to help with rent for the first few months as a wedding gift. Since things have been tense, I thought it best to reach out directly. Can you send the rent money first month and security deposit? Come to $3,000. Thanks." I stared at the message in disbelief. Not only had they excluded me from the wedding, but now they expected me to fulfill a promise I'd never made. The audacity was breathtaking. It was in that moment of shock that something inside me finally snapped into focus. This wasn't just about my pain anymore. This was about recognizing a pattern of manipulation and standing firm against it. The message from Mason sat unanswered on my phone as I tried to process not just the audacity of his request, but what it revealed about the dynamics at play. I had never promised any rent money. In fact, financial discussions about their future had always been shut down with assurances that Mason's family had everything covered. I realized I needed perspective beyond my own hurt feelings. The next day, I made an appointment with Dr. Linda Kaplan, a family therapist whose card I'd kept after she spoke at a community event about family relationships. In her calm office, surrounded by plants and soft lighting, I poured out the whole story: the gradual distancing, the wedding exclusion, and now this financial demand. "What you're describing contains several red flags for a controlling relationship," Dr. Kaplan said after listening intently. "Isolation from family and friends, creating dependency, rewriting history, like this sudden promise of financial support you never made. These are common tactics in emotionally manipulative relationships." But what did I do wrong? I asked the question that had been haunting me for weeks. Where did I fail as a mother that she would cut me out so completely? Dr. Kaplan leaned forward. "Vicky, this isn't about your failure. Controlling partners are expert at targeting vulnerabilities and exploiting them. Sophia's desire to fit into Mason's world, perhaps insecurities about her background compared to his privileged upbringing. These are things he may have weaponized. But how could she forget everything we've been through together? How could she believe I would embarrass her?" When someone is in the midst of this kind of relationship, their perception becomes distorted. They begin to see through their partner's eyes even when it contradicts their own experience and memories. We talked about boundaries, how I needed to establish them while still leaving the door open for Sophia when she was ready. Dr. Kaplan cautioned against enabling behaviors that would only strengthen Mason's control. "The rent money request is actually an opportunity," she explained. "How you respond sets an important precedent. Supporting them financially right now might make you feel like you're helping Sophia, but it could actually further entangle her in a relationship where money is used as control." After our session, I made an appointment with my financial advisor, something I'd been avoiding due to my depleted savings. Janet didn't sugarcoat the situation. "Vicky, you've spent your life prioritizing Sophia's needs over your financial security. I understand, I'm a mother too, but you're approaching retirement age with insufficient savings. Sending money you don't have to people who excluded you from their wedding would be financially irresponsible. Their professional perspectives helped crystallize what my heart had been trying to tell me. Helping Sophia didn't mean giving in to Mason's demands. Real help meant standing firm and remaining a stable presence she could return to when ready. I joined an online support group for parents estranged from adult children, finding comfort in stories similar to mine. One mother shared how her firm but loving boundaries eventually helped her daughter recognize the controlling nature of her relationship. Another described the painful process of stepping back while keeping communication channels open. Through their experiences and my own reflection, I formulated my response to Mason. I needed to be clear and firm, without burning bridges that Sophia might someday need to cross back over. I also realized I'd spent years defining myself primarily as Sophia's mother. With that role suddenly altered, I needed to rediscover who Vicky was beyond motherhood. I rejoined my community choir, something I'd loved but abandoned when Sophia's activities took priority. I reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with. Each small step helped rebuild my sense of self outside the mother-daughter relationship that had defined me for so long. After days of careful consideration, I knew exactly how to respond to Mason's presumptuous demand. I stared at Mason's text for a long time before crafting my reply. Each word needed to be measured, firm enough to establish boundaries, but not so harsh that it would give him ammunition to further alienate Sophia from me. This wasn't about punishing either of them. It was about refusing to participate in an unhealthy dynamic. Finally, I typed, "I was promised a mother of the bride role, not an ATM. When you're ready to treat me with respect, we can discuss family support. Until then, I suggest you figure out your finances the way I did. Hard work." I blocked his number immediately after sending it, knowing any response would likely be manipulative or hostile. However, I sent Sophia a separate message. "Sophia, I love you unconditionally. That has never and will never change. When you're ready to talk, I'm here. No judgment, no accusations, just love." Then came the hardest part, waiting. Days passed with no response. I focused on rebuilding my life, returning to work, attending therapy, reconnecting with friends. I shared just enough about the situation to receive support without turning it into gossip. "Sophia and I are going through a difficult time," I would say when asked. "I'm giving her space while she figures things out." A week after I sent those messages, my phone rang with Sophia's number. My hand trembled as I answered. "Mom." Her voice sounded small, almost childlike. "I'm here, sweetheart." I kept my tone neutral, fighting the urge to bombard her with questions. Can we talk? In person?" "Of course. Would you like to come over?" "Yes. Mason has a business trip tomorrow. I could come then." The fact that she was timing her visit for when he would be away spoke volumes. The next day, I fought the urge to prepare Sophia's favorite childhood foods or redecorate to make everything perfect. This wasn't about winning her back with nostalgia. It was about establishing a new, healthier relationship based on mutual respect. When she arrived, I barely recognized her. My vibrant daughter seemed diminished somehow, her shoulders slightly hunched, her eyes constantly darting as if watching for disapproval. She wore an expensive-looking outfit that somehow seemed wrong on her, too formal, too stuffy for the free-spirited girl I'd raised. We sat in awkward silence for a moment before she blurted out, "I'm sorry about the wedding." That hurt deeply, I acknowledged, trying to be honest without guilt-tripping her. It wasn't supposed to happen that way. We were planning something bigger later, but Mason's parents suggested a small ceremony first, for family connections. She twisted her wedding ring nervously. It just snowballed. And excluding me was part of that snowball. She looked down. Mason said you wouldn't fit in with the crowd, that you'd feel uncomfortable, that it was actually kinder to spare you that environment. A tear slipped down her cheek. His parents were inviting university donors and business associates. It was more networking than celebration. Did you feel comfortable there? I asked quietly. Her silence was answer enough. Mason's changed since we got married, she finally whispered. Or maybe he's just not hiding certain things anymore. He critiques everything, how I dress, how I talk, who I spend time with. Last week he went through my phone and deleted contacts he said were negative influences. Most of them were my old college friends. The floodgates opened then. She told me how Mason controlled their finances completely, giving her an allowance despite her having her own job. How he'd convinced her to turn down a promising position at a non-profit because it didn't reflect well on their family image. How he would call her multiple times during the workday to check on her whereabouts. The rent money text, she said, looking mortified. I never knew about that. We don't need money. His parents paid for the apartment in full. I think he was testing you, seeing if he could control you too. I listened without interruption, fighting the maternal instinct to jump in with solutions or expressions of outrage. When she finished, I simply asked, "What do you want to do now?" She looked startled, as if expecting me to tell her what to do. I don't know. I love him, but I'm starting to feel erased, like the real me is disappearing piece by piece. You can stay here for a few days if you need time to think, I offered. No pressure either way, just a safe space. He monitors the credit cards. He'd know if I got a hotel. This isn't a hotel. This is your home. It always has been. She nodded slowly. Maybe just for tonight, to clear my head. Then she added quickly, but please don't tell him I'm here if he calls. He gets intense when things don't go according to his plan. That night, as Sophia slept in her childhood bedroom, I sat awake processing everything. My daughter was in trouble, but rushing in to rescue her might only push her away again. She needed to recognize the situation and make her own choices. All I could do was provide support without control, the opposite of what Mason offered her. The next morning, Sophia received multiple texts from Mason, checking why she wasn't answering calls to their apartment. She responded that she was staying with an old college friend who was going through a tough time. The lie troubled me, but I understood her fear. He's coming home early, she said, panic in her voice as she read his latest message. He says he doesn't believe me about staying with a friend. He wants the friend's address. It was a critical moment. I could see Sophia teetering between returning to Mason's control and taking a stand. What do you want to do? I asked again. She took a deep breath. I need more time. Time he won't give me. With shaking hands, she typed a reply. I'm safe. I need space to think. Please respect that. His response came immediately. This isn't like you. Who's influencing you? Is it your mother? Are you with her? Sophia looked at me, fear and determination battling in her eyes. I can't keep living like this, can I? Only you can answer that, I said gently. But know that whatever you decide, you're not alone. She nodded and typed. Yes, I'm with my mother. I needed perspective. We can talk when you're calmer. The phone immediately rang. Sophia stared at it, then silenced the call. First step, she whispered. The days that followed were a delicate balance of supporting Sophia while letting her make her own decisions. She stayed with me that first night, then 2 more each day, growing slightly more confident as she remembered who she was outside of Mason's influence. During this time, Mason's behavior escalated predictably. First came incessant calls and messages alternating between anger and tearful apologies. When those didn't work, he showed up at my apartment pounding on the door and demanding to speak with his wife. I called building security while Sophia trembled in the bathroom, afraid to face him. "This is what abusers do," explained Marissa. A domestic violence counselor Sophia agreed to speak with on the third day. When they feel their control slipping, they intensify their tactics. It usually gets worse before it gets better. With Marissa's guidance, Sophia began to recognize patterns in her relationship with Mason that had been invisible to her while she was immersed in them. The way he'd systematically isolated her from friends and family, how he'd undermined her confidence with constant criticism disguised as helping her improve, the subtle threats and manipulation that kept her compliant. "I feel so stupid," Sophia said after one particularly insightful counseling session. "How did I not see what was happening? Because it happened gradually," I told her, like the frog in slowly heating water who doesn't realize it's boiling until it's too late to jump out. We worked together to secure her important documents and personal items. A friend of mine who was a lawyer helped Sophia understand her options, from restraining orders to annulment proceedings. Sophia's former college roommate Taylor bravely went to the apartment when Mason was at work to retrieve Sophia's essential belongings and mementos. Mason's tactics shifted when he realized Sophia wasn't coming back immediately. He contacted her workplace, claiming she was having a mental health crisis influenced by her unstable mother. Fortunately, Sophia had already spoken with her supervisor, who was understanding and supportive. Then came the message that truly revealed who Mason was. He texted Sophia, "If you don't come home by Friday, I'll make sure everyone knows about your father's abandonment issues and how you needed therapy in college for anxiety. My family has connections at every major firm in the city. Your career will be over before it begins." Sophia showed me the message, her hands steady for the first time in days. "This is who I married," she said quietly. "Someone who would threaten to expose my most vulnerable moments, to punish me for setting boundaries." That evening, she contacted a lawyer specializing in domestic issues and began the process of filing for an annulment based on fraud and coercion. With the lawyer's help, she also filed a temporary restraining order after documenting Mason's threatening messages. Throughout this process, I was careful to support without controlling. When Sophia wavered, recalling good moments with Mason, or worrying about disappointing his family, I didn't push her one way or another. Instead, I asked questions that helped her connect with her own wisdom. "How did you feel in those moments? What does your intuition tell you now? What future do you want for yourself?" Gradually, Sophia began rebuilding her life. She found a small apartment in a secure building near her workplace. She reconnected with friends Mason had disapproved of. She returned to therapy to process not just the marriage, but the wounds from her father's abandonment that had perhaps made her vulnerable to someone who initially seemed so different from the man who left us. The legal proceedings were difficult. Mason's family hired expensive lawyers who tried to paint Sophia as unstable and me as a manipulative influence. But the evidence, text messages, emails, witness statements from neighbors and friends, spoke for itself. The annulment was granted 6 months after Sophia left. During those months, our mother-daughter relationship transformed into something new. No longer was I the protector, and she the protected. We became two women supporting each other through life's challenges, respecting each other's boundaries and choices. The pain of being excluded from her wedding faded as we created new memories and traditions together. Sophia eventually accepted a position with a non-profit organization helping women rebuild their lives after leaving abusive relationships. "I understand them now," she told me, "not just intellectually, but in my bones." As for me, I learned that being a good mother sometimes means stepping back rather than rushing in to fix everything. That loving someone doesn't mean saving them from all pain, but giving them the space and support to save themselves. 1 year after Sophia left Mason, we sat in my small apartment, sharing a bottle of wine and the chocolate chip cookies we'd baked together since she was tall enough to reach the counter. "I need to thank you, Mum," she said suddenly, "not just for taking me in when I left Mason, but for how you responded to his text about the rent money." "What do you mean?" I asked. "If you had sent that money, it would have reinforced his belief that he could control my family just like he controlled me." Your response shocked me into seeing clearly for the first time. She reached for my hand. "You stood firm while still leaving the door open for me. That's true love. Not the kind that enables, but the kind that believes in someone's strength even when they've forgotten it themselves." I squeezed her hand, my heart full. After all the years of questioning whether I'd given Sophia enough, it turned out that one of my greatest gifts to her was knowing when not to give, when to stand firm instead. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with someone you love? If this story resonated with you, please share your thoughts in the comments below. Remember that sometimes the most loving thing we can do is stand firm rather than enable harmful behaviors. Like and subscribe if you found value in this story, and share it with someone who might need to hear this message today. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, true love empowers, it never diminishes.